We asked various students at Holy Cross if they knew who Dante was. These are their answers.
It's Italian.
Do you know what he was?
Italian. An Italian. An artist. A writer.
Yeah.
Dante was he a philosopher?
No, he's a poet.
He's a poet. He was Roman,
No.
Greek, Latin. No, you can't be Latin.
Nothing.
The only thing I know about Dante is that my roommate has a book on her desk that says Dante's Inferno.
Nothing.
Dante Alighieri. He's an Italian poet.
What do you know about Dante?
I know he lived in Italy, wrote the Inferno, the Purgatory one, the Paradiso, and that when he lived in Italy he got exiled from where he was because he didn't follow the right political party, so he ended up having to get exiled, and a lot of what he wrote is about that.
I have no idea who that is.
I know that he's Italian and he wrote the Inferno.
Dante, I believe he's a philosopher. I know Dante's Inferno is a famous book by him, and it was kind of about heaven and hell and the journey, but it's more of a philosophical take, I think, less from a religious background, but that's what I've heard.
Dante, as far as I know, is an Italian poet who was exiled from Florence.
I know that he's Italian, but that's all I know.
Killing another.
Adultery.
Murder.
Betrayal.
Cheating on someone?
I know in the book it's traitors, I think.
Murder, or any type of death, killing.
Betrayal.
If I killed someone? Murder.
After asking many of the Holy Cross students on campus who Dante Alighieri is, we realized that not a lot of people knew who he was, and if they did know who he was, they did not know a lot about him. Our goal of this documentary is to bring to light Dante and Dante's Inferno, and we chose to do this through discussing Dante's symbolic use of the Contrapasso throughout the Inferno. The Contrapasso, defined by Guy Raffa in Dante World, is expressing the logical relationship between the sin and the punishment, which Dante later refers to as the Contrapasso in Canto 28. He usually expresses the form of the Contrapasso in a simile, such as just as in life, so now in hell, or an ironic casual phrase such as because in life they failed to, and now in hell they insert the Contrapasso there. We are focusing on the 8th circle of hell, which is the circle of fraud, in which there's 10 different bulges or pouches for sinners to be punished in. And we've chosen to talk about 4 specific pouches throughout the Inferno, or throughout the 8th circle, which we will further be describing in the documentary. Christina Catalano is going to discuss the 2nd pouch, which is the home of the flatterers, those who've committed the sin of flattery. Angela Brown is going to discuss the simonists in the 3rd pouch of the 8th circle, which talks about people who have deceived the church. Megan is going to discuss the thieves, who are in the 7th pouch of the 8th circle of hell. And finally, Tom is going to discuss the 10th pouch, which houses the falsifiers. We think that by using these 4 examples within the 8th circle of hell, we're going to be able to clearly show the Contrapasso, which Dante has sought to use throughout the Inferno. And we want to show how it's an important aspect of the Inferno itself, and give clear-cut examples of how he uses the Contrapasso in each circle.
In the 18th canto of the Inferno, we find ourselves in the 8th circle, called Malabulge, which means evil pouches. Specifically, Dante describes in the 2nd pouch in this canto, in which the flatterers are punished by being immersed in excrement. 2 characters appear to us who are Alessio Intermini and Thais, who are 2 flatterers who are punished in this way. The sin of flattery is particularly disgusting to Dante, which is clear throughout the canto because of, first, how repulsive and disgusting the actual punishment is, but also because of his choice to describe them in the way that he does. The imagery is very strong here, and it goes to show Dante's disgust with the sin, particularly when he's describing Thais and how she appears in the Inferno. He says in line 125, Virgil says to him, "See you thrust your head a little farther to the front so that your eyes can clearly glimpse the face of that besmirched, bedraggled harridan who scratches at herself with shit-filled nails, and now she crouches, now she stands upright." So it's clear here that by using the words besmirched and bedraggled and words that have an extremely audible disdain for this sin, that Dante is trying to say that the sin of flattery is far worse than Thais' other sins, and she is a prostitute, but she is not punished for that. She's punished for her flatteries. The ditch is actually introduced earlier in line 112, when Dante says, "This was the place we reached. The ditch beneath held people plunged in excrement that seemed as if it had been poured from human privies." He refers to the scene as an abysmal sight, and Dante is very disgusted with this sin. The Contrapasso here is important because the shit that they are immersed in represents the shit that they spewed through words to fool people or to gain their respect or for their own personal gain. So Dante punishes them in this way in this Contrapasso because their words are corrupt and basically are the shit that they are immersed in. The final line is actually Virgil that says, "And now our sight has had its fill of this." And he says this in a quite disdainful way, as if he's wants to move on and leave behind this canto and this pouch. This is one of the first times we hear Virgil's voice and his disapproval of what he's seeing. And it's important that Dante includes this in this canto because it clues us as readers into the fact that this sight is perhaps one of the most disgusting things they have seen up until this point. And Virgil wants no part of that.
In Canto 19 of the Inferno, Dante and Virgil encounter the Simonists, who reside in Bolgia 3 of Circle 8. The Simonists are punished because in life they were guilty of buying or selling ecclesiastical pardons or offices. So this is a form of religious corruption that Dante condemns in this canto. Right from the beginning of the canto, in lines 1 through 6, Dante uses harsh language to criticize their actions. He says, "O Simon Magus, O his sad disciples, rapacious ones, who take the things of God that ought to be the brides of righteousness and make them fornicate for gold and silver. The time has come to let the trumpet sound for you. Your place is here in this third pouch." So right away we can tell that he is very critical of people that exhibited different forms of corruption in the church while they were in life. As punishment, the sinners are held upside down in baptismal fonts, so they're cut into the rock, and their feet are flailing in the air, and flames emanate from the bottom of the holes up to the top of their feet. And he makes a reference to this when he says, "As flame on oily things will only stir along the outer surface, so there too that fire made its way from heels to toes." And this is lines 28 to 30 of Canto 19. We can see the Contrapasso evident in the punishment incurred by the Simonists when you consider the religious symbols that are evident in the punishment as previously described. For one thing, one critic, Scott, suggests that the sinners' heads in the rock are a parody of the solid foundation on which Christ told the other Simon that he would build his church. Other early commentators have suggested that the flames that lick at their feet represent desire, in contrast to the warmth of charity toward which their feet should have moved them as members of the church. Other commentators, such as Ken Foster, say that the flames parody the tongues of fire that accompanied the first imposition of holy orders at the Pentecost. So this was at the reveal of the Holy Spirit. And as you may recall, this was in this episode of the Holy Spirit in the history of Christianity, the flames appeared above people's heads, and in this situation they're instead above their feet. So you can see the oppositional nature of that, which, as we've established so far, is one element of the Contrapasso. And finally, Dante's description of the fires as oily flames, or as they're flickering as if over an oily surface. The reference to oil may refer to the oil that is placed on men's heads as they're being ordained into the church. So again, there's another irony in that, and we can see the oppositional yet related elements between the symbols of religion and the punishment as a contrapasso of their corruption of these symbols in their lifetime. One historical character that Dante encounters in Canto 19 is Pope Nicholas III, and we see this when Dante asks Virgil, "Master, who is that shade who suffers and quivers more than all of his other comrades, that sinner who is licked by redder flames?" And that's lines 31 through 33. And Virgil replies that this is Pope Nicholas III because he possesses more guilt. His sins were worse than those of the other Simonists, and that's why he's afflicted by redder flames, or more harsh flames. And we see here Dante goes on to condemn Pope Nicholas for his sins against the church in Italy. And as Davis remarks too, he comments on Dante's lack of sympathy for these souls. And Davis writes, "Nowhere in the poem is Dante more personally involved, as he is certainly not shy about making known that he believed simony to be, quote, perverted and virulent, since it produced a clergy that poisoned not only the clerical church but also the whole world."
In Canto 25, we are in Circle 8, Bolgia 7, which is where Dante and Virgil come across the thieves who are punished here for eternity. The thieves have been punished by running around naked and having the serpents tie their hands and coil themselves behind their legs. One person in particular that we come across in this canto is Vanni Fucci. He's a Blackwell from Pistoia who predicted the defeat of the Whites, which is actually Dante's political party. He stole holy objects from the chapel in the Pistoian cathedral, which is why he's punished in this circle. In lines 47 through 50, it says, "If, reader, you are slow now to believe what I shall tell, that is no cause for wonder, for I who saw it hardly can accept it. As I kept my eyes fixed upon these sinners, a serpent with 6 feet springs out against one of the 3 and clutches him completely." Dante, the poet's use of contrapasso in this canto shows a direct connection with the sin of theft and punishment that the sinners receive. The contrapasso in this canto is arguably one of the most conceptually sophisticated of any of these poems. In this canto in particular, in regards to the contrapasso, we see the hold on one's identity. In other words, with dramatic transformations of the human and reptilian forms. It suggests that no possession, no matter how personal, is safe in the realm of thievery. The example of icons that we find in Canto 25 are better described in an article titled "Dante Among the Thieves" by Rebecca Beale. She says, "Against this general, grotesque backdrop, Dante sets 3 instances of metamorphosis, each triggered by a serpent's bite. In the first, the thief, Vanni Fucci, is blasted into dust and ashes, then returned to his original form, and Dante compares the change to one recounted by Ovid in the Metamorphoses. Afterwards, in a scene of protracted malice, during which we rapidly lose all sympathy for the thief, he is chased off by a dragon-carrying centaur, whom Virgil identifies as Caucasus, the monster killed by Hercules in Book 8 of the Aeneid. The centaur Caucasus is the angry centaur who seeks to punish Vanni Fucci in the pit of these thieves." In addition to the contrapasso that we find in Canto 25, there are 2 allusions that we see. The first one is when the second transformation of the thieves, in which a human and a 6-legged serpent fuse into a grotesque new form that is, according to line 69, neither 2 nor 1. This is likely meant to be understood as the parody of the Incarnation. The second allusion that we see is that of Lucan and Ovid, where in lines 94 through 102 it says, Let Lucan now be silent, where he sings of sad Sabellus and Nasidius, and wait to hear what flies off from my bow. Let Ovid now be silent, where he tells of Cadmus, Arethusa, if his verse has made of one a serpent, one a fountain. I do not envy him. He never did transmute two natures, face to face, so that both forms were ready to exchange their matter. Lucan and Ovid are two members of the elite group of poets in limbo who honor Dante by welcoming him as one of their own. Dante interrupts his extraordinary description of a mutual transformation of natures in lines 94 through 102 in order to brag that his verses surpass those of Lucan and Ovid, who wrote merely of unidirectional transformation.
In this particular Contrapasso, the alchemists are given the punishment of the disease of leprosy, and they are filled with scabs, and they are in a constant fury of itching at themselves, trying to get rid of their this itch and these scabs that are on their body. And in this particular canto, you can understand this punishment in two separate ways. The neoclassical example and the neoclassical interpretation of this punishment is that when someone was an alchemist, they tried to create gold on the outside, and that tried to make it perfect looking from the outside, so those who would look at it would see gold. And now, through this leprosy, they are giving imperfections on the outside covering of their skin, and they're trying to get rid of those imperfections that some other people might have seen within the gold that they created, which is against the nature of God, because only God has the power to create such an element that is given within the earth, such as gold. The other interpretation of this punishment can be that the alchemists were burnt at the stake for committing this sin, and therefore when you are being burnt, and when you get a burn, a scab usually forms, and a scab usually builds up, and it's very itchy. You're constantly scratching at these burns and these scabs. So that can be another interpretation of this punishment. Either interpretation shows that the punishment in this particular for the falsifiers of metals, alchemists, fits the sin that was committed on earth. In the 30th canto, the next three groups within the Bolgia are described, and these within the second group is described the falsifiers of other people. Now, these particular sinners try to go against their human nature and what they really are, to become other people, to become something that they are not. So their punishment is to be given a disease in which they act in a bestial way, something that is against their human nature, which they wanted to do when they were on earth, and therefore they will spend eternity as something that they aren't, that they are not human. In the particular lines, Dante describes the punishment of these particular people. But neither Fury, Theban, Trojan ever was seen to be so cruel against another, in rendering beast and even human limbs, as with the two shades I saw, both pale and naked, who biting ran berserk in such a way a hog does when it's less loose from its sty. And these two particular people that are being described are Gianni Scaini and Myrna, who are two shades that tried to impersonate other people while they were on earth, to deceive others, to falsify their identities. Therefore, they will be in a false identity for all eternity, acting like bestial animals. In the next group, Dante moves along with Virgil to see those who falsified coinage, counterfeiters. And in this particular group, we meet Master Adam, who falsified the florin, and he is going to be suffering from dropsy, along as all the other people who committed counterfeiting. Each separate section, whether it be the falsifiers of metals, the falsifiers of other people, and the falsifiers of coins, or the falsifiers of words, fraud can break down civilization. Fraud can spread like a disease, causing a breakdown within the political structures within within the society.